I'll try and actually remember to record it this time because I didn't remember to record last week's, which would have been great because that was actually a really good one.
That was fun, yeah.
All right, so I think today, instead of me just kind of providing like a lecture, we're going to have more of a discussion because I think discussions are valuable. So this was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it actually came to mind watching the match with Tiger and Phil this weekend. That a couple of years back, Phil Mickelson did an interview with David Feherty on the Golf Channel, and it was like a 2-part thing. And one of the things that really stood out to me during that interview was he made a quote that basically said, on tour, players are either really, really smart or really, really stupid or really, really dumb. You can't be kind of in between. And so I couldn't find the actual clip, but what I could find was Phil talking a little bit about his process for determining a shot. And I want you guys to kind of think critically about, okay, which end of the spectrum does he fall? And then we'll kind of go from there. So let me get this set up. Perfect. Share. All right, perfect. So listen, it's about a 3-minute clip.
You've always thought that way, very analytical.
There's a lot that I process on every shot, and there's a lot of detail. Do you want me to touch on it, or do you really, is it boring?
Hey, tell me about it.
Well, in my practice, I build a reference. So I hit the same shot over and over, building a 9-iron that goes 145 yards, let's say. Now, that will vary based on temperature and altitude, and which will change with time of day and whatnot, as well as wind and those effects. But one of the things people will say is I hit my wedge, 120. Well, you might hit a 120 under certain conditions, but in the morning, ball's not going to go 120. Maybe in the afternoon when it's warmer and the ball heats up, but it's going to go 5 to 10 yards shorter in the morning. People don't factor that in. If you get a little bit of water in between the club face and the ball, people don't know it actually increases spin, causes it to go shorter. The first cut always comes out 6 to 8 yards dead. If the grain is into you, it's going to launch and hit lower on the face, launch lower, have more spin. If it's down grain, the club slides a little bit quicker, you'll get more out of it. If it's sitting up on zoysia or off of a tee, always goes 5 yards farther with each iron based on the fact that the center of gravity is underneath the ball and it launches higher, a little bit less spin. All these things I have to factor in when I look at the lie. Okay, how is the lie and how is the ball going to come out relative to my 145 9-iron? Now, that's 10 off a stock, so I have a normal swing.
Right.
And then I have a second swing for every iron shot. And it's a little bit shorter backswing with the same acceleration. So I have a 145 and a 155-yard shot. What is the lie going to do? What's the temperature? What's the wind? How do I want the ball coming into the green? If you choke down an inch, 3 yards comes off of it. 1 degree aloft is 3 yards. So if you open the face a degree, that's 3 yards. So if I have a reference of 145, I want it to fly 142, I can choke down an inch. It'll come in a little bit lower, a little bit flatter, and release. Or I can just open it up and hit a little bit of a cut. That'll be 3 yards, but it'll back up. All these variables, like I'll process like that when I look at the lie and assess the situation, see what kind of grass it is. And those are the nuances that allow me to be so precise with my wedges and my short irons and my distance control.
Right.
And that's why iron play has been such a strength for my game, is that I'm able to be precise to within a yard or two. And in my practice sessions, because I hit 1,500 balls every month to those specific numbers, my reference is pretty on. If I hit a shot 145 and I feel like I nailed it, it usually
That's where it goes?
that, yeah.
All right. So what did we think of that?
I've seen that episode before. I watched that when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember just watching that again. Like, I was actually I told my dad about that when we were watching the match. Phil said something during it that was like something about his lie or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, oh yeah, I watched a Faraday episode that he was talking about like all the different stuff he thinks about when he sees it. And like that, to me, I feel like if I did that, it would just like confuse the heck out of me, you know? But I mean, it obviously works for him. So I get what he's saying, that if you just go all out, like into the analytics versus like don't do it all, like if you get confused in the middle of that, then I think it could hurt you.
Excellent. Other thoughts?
So I know he was just specifically in that clip was talking about like his like full shots with like an iron or whatever. But I think it was on hole 2 of the match. I don't know if this is the part Tav was referencing, but he was like telling Justin Thomas how he was going to hit the shot and like
Yeah.
like where he was like on like he wasn't really short sighted, but just in the collection area or whatever. And he said this is into the grain. This is where I have to land it. This is because it's going to skid off the ground this in the morning and it was raining, and it's going to check up after that because I'm going to hit it with a 60 degree. It's going to come in low. And he literally did everything exactly how he said he was going to do it. And that's exactly what happened. So I would 100% classify him as just like a smart golfer, because obviously reference that quote at the start. But I think the definition of like smart versus dumb like varies from like, I guess, person to person. But in my opinion, I just call him smart because when I think smart in terms of golf, I think of like very analytical, taking all the information. And then if you're able to process all that information, then that's what makes you smart, I guess, because anyone can just take in all the information, but the fact that he can process it and then actually predict what's going to happen and predict it correctly is what makes him smart.
Definitely.
I think like all of that stuff we already pretty much do on a normal basis. I think he just makes it a lot more complicated in what he says. Like he's very exact with how far it goes or whatever it is, but that's truly an estimate because he says that there's going to be like into the grain versus down grain and stuff like that. But depending on like it's more of a feel, to be honest, because there might be one that's sitting up higher than another. There might be this and that. So I think we all do that generally. I mean, we know when we're going to get a flyer and stuff. So it sounds very complicated, but it's not that,
I think he froze.
I was like, we're taking hella long.
Yeah, so I think kind of continuing Alex's point, which is really kind of interesting, is I do think a lot of people intrinsically understand those pieces and those characteristics, right? Like we get, hey, if we grip down, the ball's going to go a little shorter, it might come in, flatter, so on and so forth. But I think that the difference is that probably when he's hitting shots, he is trying to account for those things analytically, kind of the way that Derek and Tavin brought it up. Now, let's say that you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's say you're like somebody like Dustin Johnson. I think of him more as like kind of the just get up and kind of hit it guy, or Bubba Watson. How do you think they would do if they tried to take in or account for all of that information sort of analytically?
I think, like, especially for someone like DJ, like, I mean, you can tell, like, obviously, just in their, like, mannerisms, DJ and Phil are two completely different people, and they obviously play two completely different games. But I think Dustin, like, like Barclay was saying, I think a lot of us do, like, we all pretty much do that, but, like, it's just the way he talks about it makes it seem more complicated. I think, though, that what is beneficial for Dustin is there's a lot of, even myself sometimes likes this, like I like to be really decisive and not really think about like certain pieces of information sometimes because it's only just going to affect me or something like that. I think that's what Dustin does really well. But Phil, like, I think Phil, the type of guy, like onto a tee shot or something, would see Tiger like just say hit an 8-iron long or something. Phil would be the type of guy to just maybe switch back or something, like think about that more. But whereas Dustin is just ready to hit, like you saw in the match he played, like he was just hitting even when he wasn't away sometimes. Like he was just ready to go, just like, so I think with him that would kind of make his process it would kind of throw off his routine a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I actually have a funny story about Dustin. So I heard this from one of the coaches that I worked with a long time ago, and they said that there was a tournament out there that I think it was a practice round, And so they get up to this tee box, and Dustin asks his caddy, he's like, all right, you know, what's the number to the water? And so the caddy looks at his book and, I don't know, says something like 340. So Dustin just like rips out driver, hits it like right in the middle of the lake. And he's just standing there like, what? Like how did that happen? And so they like go back and they realize that the tee box had been moved up like from where it had been previously. And they didn't even account for it, right? They just looked at the book. They said, what's the number? Boom, hit it, go. They didn't even really consider much beyond that. And I think that for somebody like that who is really, hey, give me a number, give me a shot, decisive, go, adding in all of that information can be problematic, right? Because then you start to overthink things. You start to think about, well, what about this or what about that, instead of just sort of see ball and hit ball. Let's think of the opposite end of that equation, though. Let's think about the sort of quote-unquote dumb golfer. What are the potential issues with being sort of dumb, right? And not thinking things through fully?
You leave out information and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're missing relevant information.
And then not really knowing what went wrong after the fact to be able to fix it.
Yeah, very, very true, right? Because, hey, I don't really know why I just hit this bad shot. Like, did I mishit it? Did I pump it? Like, is it a number thing? So, yeah, there are a lot of variables that they kind of leave you at play. Anything else? Okay. Now, where do you guys feel like you fall on the equation? Smart to dumb.
I mean, honestly, to me, I feel like I lean more toward the dumber side. Even though like I like to have my information, but I play my best golf when I kind of already have like a shot in mind, like kind of like right when I get up to the ball. Like I pretty much can like visualize the shot right when I get up there. And once I get my number, I like choose a club. And a lot of the times where I've struggled is when I kind of add in more information after I've already like thought of my shot and kind of been decisive in my club choice. So I'd say I do lean more toward the dumb side, even though I do like to have like a fair amount of information sometimes. But I'd say I'm more dumb because I like to go quick and kind of decisive.
What about you, Tavin?
I'd say I'm full out dummy. No, I mean, I've had times in the past where I think before I really found myself like as what type of golfer I wanted to be, I've had times in the past where I thought like me being more like analytical, like, or just that attitude like that Phil has, like might benefit me because that's what the pros do, you know. But what I found is like that's just not who I am. Like I'm very like feel based, and I'm with that comes like I'm gonna have a few shots around. I know like iron shots that I'm just gonna like pump long because maybe I didn't look at the lie close enough and see that it was like a flyer, and stuff like that. But like I have a way of doing things which is just like take the driver as much as I swing as hard as I can because I know if I hit a good one, it's gonna benefit me. And yeah, I'll probably hit a few bad ones, but you know that's golf. So
makes sense. What about you, Ash?
I would say pretty analytical.
Okay.
I mean, I think like I definitely am a field golfer. I don't think the two are necessarily like opposed. Because like I judge the lie a lot around the greens, but at the same time I don't say like, oh, this is like this type of grass, it's going to do this. I just kind of look at it, feel it, and then like I really analyze the lie, but I don't like, I don't know, label it, like have like kind of the labels that Phil has for it.
Okay.
And then for full shots, I would say, yeah, it's pretty similar.
Okay. Alex?
I'd say definitely analytical. There's no doubt about that. Like around the greens, like I have different techniques for different lies. Like for me, like feeling it started to come, but like if it's like into the grain, like I focus on certain things, and if it's down grain, I know that I can land it here or there or whatever. And then I would say actually going into the greens, I'm very feel based, because I feel like for me, some reason, like in an approach shot, I feel like there's more variables than around the greens and stuff. That's just how I feel, and like if it sits down like a quarter of an inch or whatever it is, then like that might totally change my thinking and stuff like that. So I would say definitely analytical.
Okay. Now, why do you guys think there's the problem of being kind of caught in between the two? Why do you think that Phil would say you need to either be one or the other?
I think there's just two. I think his opinion, there's just two types of people, and there's kind of, well, honestly, in my opinion, I kind of like agree with him, like, because really, I mean, when you look at like a Phil versus DJ like comparison, or like a Phil versus like Koepka comparison, like they're two like completely different people, but they both play at a high level. But I think there's like a lot of guys who kind of just get caught in the middle, and I think in the past, like I played with a lot of guys who like will start like real like analytical, and then just kind of like they might not play the way they want to, and then they just kind of throw away all that and they just kind of start going really fast, and they don't stick to their game plan, and it just gets worse and worse. So I think you just got to find something that works for you. But if you're in the middle, it's just like I think if you're in the middle, you're not like, you don't have enough information and you're not as decisive. So it's like kind of just, you're either really decisive and that's great, or you have all your information and you make a committed decision based on that, or you're just like half of each, and that just doesn't like mix together well.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I completely disagree with Phil on that aspect. I don't think that being stuck in between would not be a bad thing as long as it stays consistent. So like Derek said, if you're changing it, then that's when things become a problem. But like every PGA Tour player reads the lie, or they have their caddy read the lie. It's just how it is. Or, you know, like either like, I think my swing coach told me this, like either the player is stupid and they have a smart caddy, or they're really smart and that's just how it goes. Like, so like everyone's going to read the lie. And if they're not, then they're possibly going to hit a poor shot. Like, it's just, you know, to what extent, like Phil said, he knows that it'll go 3 yards farther. It'll go 4 yards farther. Like, other people are more feel, I guess, around like that. And there's just different ways of going about it. But I wouldn't – it's hard to classify it into, like, smart and dumb, right? Because, yeah. So it's like smart and smarter almost.
Fair enough. I like it.
And I like what Alex said there, because there's like everyone else is going to have a different definition of what like it classifies a dumb versus like a smart guy. So it's like, I mean, Phil probably has a completely different definition than we do. And Phil probably thinks that, you know, obviously he plays with PGA Tour guys, so he sees them read the lie and everything. But like Alex said, to what extent do you do everything? And Phil just takes it to like another level, which I think makes it more complicated and makes him seem like, wow, he's a genius, like, or whatever.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. It's just like if you have a 150-yard shot and it's sitting like way up on the rough, and you just said, oh, it's just a 150-yard shot. I'm just going to hit this 150 yards. And next thing you know, you're 40 yards over the green or whatever the hell you go, right? Like, that's just – I mean, that's dumb, and that just doesn't happen. At least it shouldn't, you know? Yeah. But, like, there's people that, like Tavin said, like, to rip driver, and that's fine. That's not smart or dumb. That's just like a strategic way of playing. Like Bill is trying to hit it as far as he can, right? But he has his reasons, and yeah.
So I think that the one thing that Derek said that I think it's a really good point to kind of bring up, whether you're dumb, our sort of concept of dumb, or whether or not you're smart, what it comes down to is committing to that, right? The beauty of the quote unquote dumb golfer is they don't really overthink it, right? They get their number, they get their target, and then they execute. Cool, that's great. Like, that's the name of the game, right? The difference with the smart golfer is they collect all of this information, they devise a plan, they commit to that plan, and then they execute that plan, right? It's the same ultimate goal, but they're going about it in a different way. And I think that where people get themselves into trouble kind of in that no man's land, and why that's kind of where we're trying to steer clear of, is you lose that sort of commitment piece, right? When you are somebody who is naturally just a gorilla, right? You don't really think much about it. You know what? If you start kind of overthinking things a little bit, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to fully commit to a shot. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to fully buy in, because that's not your nature, right? You're going to feel a little uncomfortable. You're going to feel a little unsure. On the flip side, if you are that person who needs data, you need information, and I go up and I say, all right, pick your target and just let it fly, that's also going to create discomfort. That's also going to create indecision. It's going to create a lack of commitment. And I think that when we come back to the things consistently about, hey, what differentiates good players from bad players, commitment's one of the big ones, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And, you know, yeah, at the end of the day, you're just going to commit to the shot, and that'll give you the best opportunity to. But there's such like a wide spectrum, whereas like, you know, a person that's supposed to be in the smarter category tries to play dumb, then he's not going to commit to all the shots because he just can't trust the number or what it is. And then the guy that's dumb, is supposed to be in the smarter category, is like overwhelmed with information and doesn't even pick a target, right? So, but yeah.
I like it. Any other questions kind of related to that topic, or any other thoughts related to that topic? Okay. Then, yeah,
I'll add one. When people say I think like my college coach has told me like sometimes I need to like just simplify things. Like I don't know if like my issue was more an analytical thing or just trying to do too much with the ball. I was just wondering like what your thoughts on you know, are analytical people necessarily like people who like who have a lot of different shots they try to play, or are the two not as I like try to work the ball both ways versus you know, just have like two or three, like a full shot and a knockdown shot type thing.
When I think of the analytical player, I think of somebody who relies on data. And there are going to be some people who are very analytical who may try and hit a lot of different shots because for them, they look at variety as giving them multiple avenues to execute a shot. I would say probably more than half are going to be people who try and say, all right, this is a shot that I hit, right? When you think about Decade, when you think about these various sort of programs out there designed to strategize from an analytical perspective, or even just, you know, shots gained, strokes gained, all of that stuff, you know exactly where you need your work, right? So if you know every time I hit a fade off of the tee, I hit the fairway. Every time I hit a draw off of the tee, I miss the fairway. Yeah, that's a very simplistic example. Why would you ever try and hit a draw unless you absolutely had to, right? The same way that just because I have the ability to doesn't mean I need to pull it out, right? I may carry 4 wedges, but I don't have to hit every single one of them every single round, right? It's giving me options if I need them. So I think sometimes the analytical player can get in their own way, knowing that they can execute a shot, right? Hey, I know I can hit a high fade, but why do I need to hit a high fade if I know that every single time I hit just a little baby draw, it goes exactly where I want, right? Sometimes we try and make the game a little bit more difficult than we need to, instead of just saying, I'm just going to play my game and play that as well as I possibly can, right? Great example, Zach Johnson. It's weird to think that he's a multiple major champion, right? That's when you think of Zach Johnson, you don't think multi-major winner, but he's won a Masters, he's won an Open Championship. When he won the Masters, he laid up on every single one of the par fives at Augusta, that entire tournament. Now, there were multiple times where he probably could have gone for it, but he knew that, you know what, my strength, especially in this set of conditions, is my wedges. So even though I can execute the shot, I have the ability to pull off the shot, analytically or statistically speaking, this is my best avenue to shoot the lowest score possible. So he's a really good example of somebody, if he kind of overthought it, if he just went away from the data and said, yeah, but I can hit this 220-yard shot off of a hanging lie on 13 every single time, he may not have been able to score as well, even though he could execute the shot. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
There's one I like that you mentioned that, because when I think of like guys who just play their game, like, or just played their game like throughout their whole careers, like how they want to do it, I think of like Zach Johnson and like Jim Furyk are like two of my like big ones.
Yeah.
And Zach Johnson especially, because the dude literally has, like, I mean, he hits every shot's pretty much a draw, but his swing is so good with his wedges, like he can literally hit the same shot 100 times in a row with his wedges if he wants to. Like, so there's no point in him, especially on, like you mentioned, 13 at Augusta, since he already draws the ball a lot. His miss is not, like, if he misses it, he's going to miss left, and that's not a good miss. So he just can lay it up, and then he knows how to hit his wedge shots, and he knows the green complexes, so he can just play. It's like Phil when he like tries to like pull the pin from like 100 yards away or something. Like, he knows he has a really good shot at holding it because that's the strength of his game. So I think that's like a great example.
Another really good example is this is going back a little ways. David Duval, when he was the number 1 player in the world, when he was just destroying everybody, he hit nothing but a fade, right? He played from a really closed position, rotated super hard, and he hit just a reliable baby cut every single time, right? And that's also a situation where if you can eliminate part of the golf course, if you know no matter what happens, this ball is not going left, it frees you up to hit certain shots. Yeah, there are going to be times where the shot may not exactly call for a fade, but if you know every single time I can fade it 4 yards, well, you can kind of work around that. The difficulty comes where you start to say, well, I don't know if this is going left. I don't know if it's going right. Now what do I do? Because obviously trying to hit to a narrow window, you're like, well, I only have half on each side. You hear Nicholas talk about it. Hey, I always try to eliminate one side, or I always try to hit a particular shot to a particular hole because it gave me more room for error. So, you know, the analytical player, you know what? They're considering that, right? They're considering, all right, what shot do I hit most consistently, most regularly? Let me play to those strengths so I give myself the best chance of success. Whereas the dumb golfer, they're like, all right, I'm just going to get up and rip it, and, you know, we're going to go find it. But they're also just they're aware of their tendencies, but they're not overtly thinking about it the same way the analytical player does.
Yeah, I mean, you think of guys nowadays who do that. Like, I just think about Koepka when he won the PGA Championship last year. He played his buttercut over like the tops of the trees on, like, if there's trees left, he just played over the tops of the trees left and just cut it back into the fairway. Like, I mean, that's literally the shot he hit all week. And even with his irons, he had a little cut, driver hit a little cut, and that's why he won. That's why he won 2 in a row, and that's why he won 2 U.S. Opens in a row, just because he sticks to his game plan. And, like, I mean, it's the modern game now. You just pound it with a little cut, and it's like 300 yards. Like,
Wedge from the rough's better than 6-iron from the fairway.
Yep. Talk about data, statistics. Every shot counts. It's a book published by a statistician that basically, created the whole bomb and gouge mentality, right? Hey, a wedge from 100 yards, you're going to hit it exponentially closer every single time than 9-iron from the fairway, 5-iron from the fairway, whatever it might be. So, there's obviously different schools of thought as how you maximize that, but, it's something to consider as well. All right. So as we kind of wrap up, any questions on your guys' mind? Anything you want to pick my brain on?
I just had a question. Where do you think you fall on the spectrum? Smart versus dumb?
I try and be as dumb as I possibly can. So that's probably a bad thing because there are definitely times where I don't account for things that I probably should. But what I've tried to take away from like my professional expertise, like when I was younger and I was playing competitively in like high school and college, I probably went the opposite route where I was way too thoughtful about everything. And so I tried to go the opposite end of that pendulum, especially since I don't have the ability to practice the same way. And I just don't want to like kind of get in my own way by overthinking things. And so for me, it's just, all right, see the shot, feel the shot, and just kind of just execute and try and get out of my own way. It works reasonably well. Anything else?
I got nothing.
Not for me.
Okay. Any competitive golf on the horizon? Because obviously there are some tournaments that are starting to post dates and whatnot.
I signed up for the Oakland City.
Nice.
As did I.
Nice. Chabot.
I wish
I think I played that once in US Kids. I've never.
We
Not
played
since
Oakland too. I played the Oakland City like 3 or 4 years ago, and that was it, I think.
wish I could play there because I've gotten like second in the last like 2.
I know. I remember you were in the playoff like 2 years ago or
Why
something.
can't you play?
Because I have some other tournament, I think, or a qualifier. So I have like 3 qualifiers, and then hopefully 3 tournaments, and then I'm trying to add some city events here and there.
Nice.
I can
Dude, you were expected.
expected where?
People want you at Chabot, Barclay. The
I know that-
people's champ.
The people are talking about it, man.
Come on, that's my tournament.
It's the
man.
buzz of the town.
If somebody takes that down, I expect at least like a flag with like my name on it or
Yeah,
something.
right.
Some shout out to that.
Oh man.
I'm just gonna WD and then go to the Oakland City.
Nice.
No, but I've been trying to like find dates for tournaments and stuff online, and if you want to play tournaments, though, go to Reno or go to Arizona. There's tournaments all over those places right now.
Oh, for real. And I saw, I want to say earlier this week, I think Cal State Amateur or SCGA, I forget which one it was, they are doing their big one. It's in August at Industry Hills. So I don't know what the qualification is like for that, but that's always a big event, and that's a really good course as well. So
Sweet.
Well, the California Am this year is in San Diego, Torrey Pines.
yeah, it is at Torrey. So that's the CGA one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, if you guys need anything from me, let me know.